Oh, yesterday was a big day for yours truly as I got to hang around with Jalen Milroe and Terry Arnaudo for a while, and I'm going to tell you about it.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back in Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me, and Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the absolute best. Jimmy, allow me to fanboy for a second here. Yesterday, I went to a Christmas party, and I'll give him a shout out. It was for Craneworks. I happen to know the owner, super guy, and he's done really well with Craneworks. They're a good. I like how you ventriloquist coughed there in the background. I'm assuming that's Kelly. Anyway, so I got to go to the Christmas party, and I got to go a little early. And I'm going to put some pictures up because I got to talk to and see Jalen Milroe. And here's evidence, me standing next to Jalen Milroe. And
they wouldn't let you inside the party. Understandable.
They did. I just wanted to go ahead and get my.
You were probably drunk.
There's me and Terrion. And now I'm just going to tell a few stories here. Excuse me.
Does Terrion travel with Miss Terry? I've never seen them not together.
No, they don't. But you're right. It would have been cool if she had been there. My buddy went and picked him up in a helicopter. That is on social media. That is not a secret. And Jalen Milroe put it out there. Now here's a picture of Terrion, and here's the cool story. This is a picture. So Terrion, my buddy let some of us come a little early and get some autographs, get some shirts signed, things like that. If I was thinking, I would have gotten one of them and say, "Hey, thanks for listening to Locked On Bama." I wasn't thinking. Whoa. I was awestruck, and all I could do before I get to this picture, I'll tell you the only thing I could do. Well, my daughter's a big Alabama fan that lives in Ohio, as most people know, and I'm going to put this. I got Jalen Milroe to do this for her.
Hello, Merry Sampson. Merry Christmas and Roll Tide.
So I got Jalen Milroe just tell my daughter Merry Christmas and Roll Tide, and she loved it. And he was
that's the best Roll Tide in the universe right now.
He's got that $1 million smile. I mean, he's such a dude, man. I'm telling you, I was taken aback. And look, I know a lot of people have seen Terry Arnaudo on interviews and they think, oh man, he's so eloquent. I mean, he really is. I mean, but dude, I'm telling you right now, both of them are two of the most genuine players I've ever been around. Like some guys, they're nicer when they're on camera and like off camera, they're kind of jerks. No. I'm telling you, man, Jimmy, for real. I
believe it.
You was like talking to two other fans. And in fact, so this picture is important because you see we're in an office there at Craneworks, and they just put on the SEC championship game in the background, just to have it fun, for Terrion and Jaden Milroe to be there and see a couple of people. And Terrion said he was signing autographs, and he said, wait a minute, I want to see this play. I know this play. We busted. And it was very early in the game, and it was a sort of a little flare-out pass to Brock Bowers. And Terrion said, yeah, I'm going to tell you all about this. And he talked about the coverage. He talked about what everybody was supposed to do. I mean, like he stopped what he was doing because he was so passionate about this. He stopped what he was doing. He started explaining everything. And like he was so excited. He said, look, you see right here, our linebacker is supposed to take Bowers, but they do this eye candy so that he bites on the inside. And he shouldn't have done. I'm not going to even name who it was, but I mean, if you see the play, you'll know. He goes, he shouldn't have bit on that, but he bit. And that's why the play went for, I don't know, like 8 or 9 yards or whatever it did. He said, if he didn't bite on that.
Obviously wasn't there at the party or the breakdown, but I'm guessing you have 15 reasons you're not telling us about who busted on the play.
No, more like 30.
Oh, okay. 30. Well, that's a more likely candidate, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's very early when you can see on there it was a 0-0 game at the time. And God, Jimmy, I mean, I just totally fanboyed. And look, all disclosure, Craneworks also has a deal with 2 Auburn guys, Elijah McAllister and Jalen Simpson. They were both there. I got to talk to both of them. Very nice guys as well. Give a shout out to them. I got some friends of mine who are big Auburn fans. They have kids, and I got autographs for them. And I also thought I should have gotten some autographs, just random autographs to give away here on Locked On Bama, and I just didn't do it because I'm stupid and I'm sorry, and that's on me to you guys because I could have just given some of those away. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. But I mean, y'all got to understand, like normally I'm not blown away by meeting a player because I get it. Like the player's probably like, just another. But these two were so genuinely happy to be there. They couldn't have been any nicer, Jimmy. I'm telling you, Alabama fans, be super, super proud of these dudes. Let me tell you something else. So I said, and I'm sorry I'm dominating this whole thing, but it's interesting. I talked to Jalen.
I didn't hang out with Milroe and Terry on yesterday, so you go right ahead.
So I talked to Milroe, and I said, buddy, you got to be so excited to go to the Rose Bowl and then the potential of playing against Texas in Houston, where you're from, in Texas, rematch. He said, yeah. And he said, I was born in California. And he said, so the Rose Bowl's cool. I didn't know he was born in California. Did you?
Now that you say that, now that you say it, but I never would have recalled it. But now that you say it, I do remember reading. I read a story about Milroe's family and his dad, I think, in the military. So yeah. I think that's kind of where that's from. But that's interesting. Now that you say that, I wonder if the Locked On Bama Christmas party, we can afford maybe some managers and trainers. Maybe get some.
We can get a Hunter Johnson. Think we can get Hunter Johnson?
I don't know. Now Hunter's got an NIL. Hunter has an NIL asking price.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what we can do. I'll see what I can do with maybe Lamb and Hastings.
Yeah,
they're cheaper.
I could probably get my cousin or something who's not even Alabama fan. But I'll tell you something else that was funny. So, I also was just talking to Terry again. Talking to Terry and Arnold, talking to Milroe is so cool because it feels like you're talking to a movie star. He's nothing but smiles. He's so happy. He's a yes sir, no sir kid. He's just awesome. Talking to Terrion is like talking to your really smart friend. Like he's your buddy, and he's also probably smarter than you. And I talked to him about, first of all, I said, everybody made a big deal about how you said we're playing for Florida State too. And he said, yeah. He said, I'm in it. He said, I'm not, I got a lot of friends that go to Florida State. I'm from Tallahassee. And he said, I've been back to Tallahassee since I said that. And he said, I've had so many people stop and tell me, man, we appreciate your saying that. And he said, I'm in it. He was totally.
He grew up an FSU fan, for people that don't know. He grew up a fan of FSU. And I heard him say, and I heard him say that if they had a more stable situation at the time he's coming out of high school, he probably would have signed with them. But they were in the middle of a coaching change. They weren't winning. And Nick Saban and the Alabama program looks like a beacon light on the hill, it was rescuing him from the unstable situation of Florida State. But he talked about how, hey, now they're winning. Now it's a great program right now. Maybe he would have made a different choice. And I understand that because you grow up a fan of a certain team and you're going to give that team the first shot. Right. Yep. But I'm glad it ended up like it did, and I'm sure Terrion does too.
Good Lord. I don't know what happened with your brightness right there.
My light had a nuclear moment there. Had a whole Chernobyl scene going on here.
So then I'm talking to Terrion, also talking to him about the Rose Bowl, about how excited, because I've been to the Rose Bowl myself a few times. I'm like, you're going to love it. It's just, the venue is incredible. And it's going to be different from you because, you're playing. I was just up there like some schmuck. And then so Jalen Simpson was there, and honestly, I felt a little weird because I felt like we were talking about all these playoff stuff. And I said, Jalen, and I really was trying to be genuinely nice. I was like, Jalen, I know you guys are excited. Y'all got a great game coming up against, Taulia Tagovailoa and Maryland. I know you're happy about going to Nashville. That's going to be fun. He said, I'd rather be going to the Rose Bowl. And I was like, yeah, okay. And he said, yeah.
Nashville is a cool place for I don't know about the players, but for the fans, Nashville is a good bowl location, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I said, well, but it's fun to go to these bowl games, right? You get treated like kings and swag. Whatever. He said, some bowl games don't give you as much swag as other. And Terrion was like, yeah, man, last year the Sugar Bowl was stingy. It's just funny stuff. But anyway, Jimmy, I'm telling you guys, I want to put this picture up because I downloaded it anyway. I hope it comes up. There it is. That's me and Elijah McAllister and Jalen Simpson. Again, they were super nice. Props to the Auburn guys there. They couldn't have been any nicer.
Yeah, we talked on fair. You reminded me that Jalen Simpson's playing in the Senior Bowl, right? So
yeah,
good player. If I remember, he had a big early part of the season where he had multiple interceptions. I think
he got hurt.
Yeah. So I mean, he had a big early part of the year. Good player for sure.
He was ESPN mid-season All-American, and then I think he got hurt and tailed off a little bit. But anyway, that was just a surreal moment for me. And I'll tell you something else.
The players didn't know each other, right? I mean, Jalen and Terrion didn't know Elijah and Jalen Simpson until yesterday, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. And again, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I'm not trying. This NIL, right? So, I mean, I'm not speaking out of turn, but I thought it was ironic. Jalen Simpson drove up in a white Dodge Charger. I was like, that's kind of irony, but hey, I'm cool for it. I mean, happy for it. I mean, I'm not complaining. I think that's great. But
no, I was just assuming that they had never met and probably got along great. About
Terrion and Jalen, they were actually speaking for a while. And I mean, I don't know if they did. Maybe they know each other just because Alabama, Auburn, whatever. And maybe they just football players, so they have a symmetry. But Elijah McAllister got there a little late. And I'll tell you something. Elijah McAllister, by the way, is like going for his master's or doctorate or something.
Oh, cool.
And he's apparently like super duper smart. And so he got there a little late, but he probably was studying. But anyway, I was really impressed with all these guys. And, we sit here and talk about college athletes all the time, and we don't talk about – we talk about their athletic prowess and everything. And it just made me feel good about college athletics in general, but really proud to be an Alabama fan. The representation by Terrion and Jalen Milroe, guys, I'm telling you, y'all need to buy Jalen Milroe and Terrion Arnold stock. And I'll tell you one other thing. I'll just leave it at that. I was 1,000% convinced Terrion Arnold's going pro. I'm still 900% convinced he's going pro. I dropped 100% because I'm not 1,000% sure he's going pro anymore, and I'll just leave it at that. I still think he will, but I'm not as sure as I once was. So that's the beauty of college football in the NIL world. So, Jimmy, when we come back, we got to talk about this schedule. I'm so excited about it, and we're going to get to it right now. I'm going to tell everybody, well, I put up FanDuel, but you know what? I'm going to put up Prize Picks because that's what I'm supposed to talk about. Because if it'll come up, there it is right there. I'm supposed to talk about Prize Picks. I'm going to do it because Prize Picks is awesome. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege is where you want to go. Obviously, there's no doubt about it. Use code LockedOnCollege. And check out prizepicks.com. What is Prize Picks? It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings just roll on in. Look, if you want to do something funky, well, like with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce had a 10.5 combo with 3-pointers made plus kisses to Taylor Swift. I made that up. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill? You can do that from the Communities tab. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to 100 smacks. Okay, Jimmy. Went to a Christmas party last night, and
I heard.
Yeah, a different party last night.
Oh.
So that was
2 parties in one day?
Yeah, I know. You know me.
You must have been trashed. You must have been trashed.
No, I didn't drink at the first one because, well, it was in the middle of the day. And I know most of you are like, it's never stopped you before. Anywho, the second one was a bank Christmas party, and when it was at the Back 40 there in Birmingham. I'm giving a lot of shout outs to people who don't sponsor us, by the way. So how about ponying up, guys? But they had the TVs on and they had the schedule reveal, and I had to leave the party to go watch this. And I was we talked about yesterday what would be the ideal situation for Alabama, and I still maintain that I would have loved to have played Vanderbilt before the Georgia game. But instead, what they've done, and this certainly makes sense, and you called this, they gave Alabama and Georgia off weeks before the big game. Now, I'm going to put the schedule up there and just go over it very quickly for those listening versus watching. But there's Alabama opens with Western Kentucky, then South Florida at home, at Wisconsin. They have a bye week. Georgia at home, which has already been announced for ABC 6:30. That's going to be an absolute monster game. In fact, like I saw where Embassy Suites, a 2-night stay is like $4,000 already. That's insanity. At Vanderbilt the next week, which again, I do like that. Like Georgia at home, you're beat up. Then you go play a Vanderbilt team that's already losing a bunch of people, that's already Vanderbilt, and then losing a bunch of people from the transfer portal.
Hard to imagine Alabama plays well in that Vanderbilt game. But thankfully, again, you don't have to play your best game to win. But boy, I think that Georgia game hangover and then going on the road at Vanderbilt, that could be a slop fest.
Then, okay, this is probably this is the stretch to me. This is sort of the telltale. South Carolina at home, who, by the way, just picked up Rocket Sanders from Arkansas. I mean, they're not going to be world beaters, but they've got some dudes. They've got enough to give you a scare. Then at Tennessee, you got to think they're going to be pretty good again. I mean, they may not be what they were 2 years ago, but they'll be pretty good again. And then Missouri at home, and this Missouri team is getting better and better through recruiting and the transfer portal and just returning players. Then another open date at LSU, Mercer at home, at Oklahoma, which we already knew, and then Auburn at home, of course. Okay, I'm looking at this schedule going, I really break it down into a couple of things. I mean, the at Wisconsin, open date Georgia, then the South Carolina at Tennessee, Missouri stretch, and then at Oklahoma and Auburn at home. Now, what I said last night on the reveal show that we did on Locked On SEC was a couple of things. Oklahoma looks incredibly scary when you play them right before Auburn specifically. But what I'm thinking, and again, this may be wishful thinking, that Oklahoma is going to be on the tail end of going through an SEC schedule, which is much different than going through a Big 12 schedule, and they may be a little beat up. And so maybe Alabama will have the experience factor going there. It's going to be tough playing in Norman. I'm telling you, they're tough. But that's going to be a little better. And here's the other thing I mentioned. I think this, as an original SEC member, I think all 10 to 12 to 14 of us, whatever you want to do, we need to make a strong effort to make sure that Texas nor Oklahoma makes it to Atlanta next year. I think we need to have original SEC pride. We don't want Texas and Oklahoma prancing into this conference and going to Atlanta, either or both, and saying, hey, well, I thought y'all said this was tough. No, we need to be sure that two original SEC members get in there.
I think, both Texas and Oklahoma, I think will be pretty good next year, especially Texas. They've recruited too well not to be. They'll return Quinn Ewers, and he'll be on the short list of Heisman candidates, along with Milroe, Carson Beck. I just see Alabama, Texas, and Georgia next year very similar to this season. Alabama, Texas, and Georgia sort of separating themselves from the rest of the pack. But that's a really tough schedule, Luke. I mean, it's probably the most difficult 12-game schedule Alabama has ever played. And put it this way, I think Alabama has an excellent chance next year to be improved over this team, better than probably the best Alabama team since 2020. A great chance to make the playoff and win it, but you're not going 12-0 against that schedule. It won't be 12-0. I'll be adamant. There's not going to be a 12-0 season for Alabama against that schedule. You're going to lose certainly one. And I think going into the season, I'm likely to predict 10-2. And before everyone freaks out on me, keep in mind, I may say as a prediction, Alabama's going to finish 10-2, make the playoff and win the national championship. But I just think that regular season schedule's tough. And it's not even the toughest one I saw last night. Florida just has, let's just go ahead and fire Napier because I mean it half jokingly, but not really. I mean, it's not fair to fire him after next season. No one's going to no one is going to coach that Florida team to an 8-4 record against that schedule. No one is, not the ghost of Vince Lombardi. I mean, so just if you're like, hey, Napier's got to have a good season next year if he's fired, just fire him today. I mean, it's no fair to make him. What they say back in the Pirate days? You had to walk the plank.
Yeah,
that schedule is walking the plank. I mean, why are you making him do that? Just lop off his head now.
No, I'm with you. This is, he's dead man walking. And look, I guess if you're Napier, Homer Simpson said the Chinese have the same word for crisis as they do for opportunity, crisis-opportunity. He's got a crisis-opportunity. I mean, if he were to somehow just have a winning record, he's coach of the year. That schedule is ridiculous. And, that's going to happen. And I looked at Auburn's schedule and I say, outside of at Bama, at Georgia, Auburn's schedule is incredibly manageable. Now, at Kentucky, at Missouri is getting tougher by the minute. Kentucky just got
current Auburn team wouldn't win either one of those games.
Agreed. Now, but they're going to be better next year. So
probably,
yeah.
I'm fascinated by what they're doing at quarterback.
Well,
fascinated by that.
I'm curious what's going to happen with Malik Murphy from Texas, who just got in the portal. I'm not saying I've heard anything about Auburn with him. I'm just saying, where is he going to go? Because that is an interesting cat.
Oh, he's good.
He's won some games already.
He's good. If he's signed with Auburn, I would audibly gulp. I mean, he's good. Now, Auburn, as many NFL teams will show you need more than a good quarterback. But Malik Murphy would definitely be the best quarterback at Auburn in a long time. But the team I've heard with Malik Murphy is Ohio State, but they're obviously in big on the Cam Ward sweepstakes too. Cam Ward may end up choosing the NFL and not transferring. So that's something that's up in the air. But what I'm saying is I'm curious about Auburn and quarterback is I haven't heard a name that's locked into Auburn. I mean, you heard whispers, maybe Riley Leonard, maybe Grayson McCall. Obviously, those two are off the board without visiting Auburn. Are they going to stick with Peyton Thorne? And one thing about Peyton Thorne, I'll say that's so confusing to me, and it shows about supporting cast, Luke, is I saw Peyton Thorne play at Michigan State. I thought he was fairly good. I wasn't as impressed with Peyton Thorne this past year at Auburn. And again, I say it's the cast, it's the offensive line, and the schedule, and playing tougher defenses. Absolutely, that's true. I'm just saying the Peyton Thorne I saw at Michigan State, in my opinion, was a better player than the one I saw this year. But again, like you said, great point about the schedule. At Michigan State, one of his wide receivers was Keon Coleman. I think that had a lot to do with things.
Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to have a sort of abbreviated last segment, just talk about some of the notes from the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. Right now, I want to tell everybody about FanDuel, and the weather is getting colder, but the NFL, that's staying hot, baby. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. This app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. I mean, a wide range. Spreads and player props and over-unders and much, much, much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. And you don't even have to kick it off because it's already in week 14. So, I can take the kickoff part out. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So, Jimmy, Alabama-Mississippi All-Star practice is going on. Mm-hmm. And there have been some notes, a couple of things here. And this is from your boys over there at On 3. Ryan Williams was there, and they said, look,
Charles Power, I think, wrote this article, correct? What's interesting for people that don't.
Yes.
Interesting for those who are unaware, and fine. Charles Power is the lead voice in terms of On 3's rankings. So the fact that Charles is there personally at the practice could be considerably interesting in terms of the rankings, because in-person evaluations are just so much more accurate than just watching tape.
Props. Again, I'm not going to sweat that all too terribly much. He had some nice things to say about my hometown kid, Malcolm Simmons, who's headed to Auburn. He said very athletic, needs to work on some route running and catching technique, but overall, we're still very good. He said William Sanders looked like the clear top offensive lineman for the Alabama team. That's good to know. I mean, that's a kid that I think is going to move up. When they have the ultimate rankings at the end, I think he will move up. Don't you, Jim?
I'll be surprised if William Sanders isn't a serious contender for a starting spot at Alabama in his career. I mean, I see him as not a slam dunk starter, but I mean, because it's hard to get on the field at Nick Saban's Alabama. I'm just saying I like Sanders to the point that I think redshirt freshman year, he'll fight for a spot.
And for those who don't know, the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game is noon. It's going to be televised. I don't know where, but it's noon this Saturday from Hattiesburg. He also had this to say about Jalen Mbakwe. He said he did a little bit of everything in practice. And yes, he's going to play defensive back. He is listed as defensive back, but he did take some snaps under center. And again, he was the MVP of this. Yeah,
you predicted that.
That's awesome.
Yes, on yesterday's show. You said, hey, will we see Mbakwe take snaps at quarterback? And that's very, very astute of you to have predicted that. Jared Hollins is going to be the primary quarterback for Alabama. Good player he wasn't a lot. Most people listening to the show don't know him because y'all mostly pay attention to Alabama recruiting and SEC recruiting. Jared Hollins is committed to South Alabama. He is really good. I think he's a guy that will be able to get Ryan Williams and those guys the ball.
They talk about a kid named Jalen Brown who's committed to Missouri, and he's from James Clemens, 6'6", and he's listed at 240. And they said, man, he's just, boy, I really like the sound of that. I think Missouri's getting a good one. So I'm excited to see him play because they're
good evaluators. Yeah. They're good evaluators. Missouri's team, which was really, really good and a legit top 10 team of the season, built on the backs of mostly 3-stars, which should tell anyone, hey, these guys are great evaluators. When I see a team that signs mostly 3-stars, but they're one of the top 10 or 15 teams in the country, I think great evaluators, great developers.
And I thought it was great, by the way, for those who didn't see the schedule reveal show, Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri, was actually making an in-home visit. And he stopped the visit to do an interview about the schedule, which he had not seen. So he was like looking at the schedule as it was revealed. It was pretty cool. He's just a personable guy. He's
a great interview.
Yeah,
he's the Mike McDaniel of the SEC.
Yeah, I agree. Alabama commit Jeremiah Beeman had a solid practice on Wednesday, they said. He was physical in the run game and flashed good bend off the edge, and he was noticeably trying to work on his game during practice and paid attention to detail. I think that's great. They also talk about Dre Kirkpatrick. He had a great play on a deep ball intended for Bryce Kane. They bring up Daniel Hill, who, no telling where he's going to commit. I mean, it may be Alabama eventually, but who knows? So overall, those were all the names that were brought up in terms of, associated with Alabama. And one other thing to note before we get out of here, Kevin Riley is going to visit Alabama this weekend officially, Jimmy, and you kind of predicted that. And boy, that could lead to a nice pickup there late in recruiting season. Interesting
prospect for sure. I like Kevin Riley a lot as a player. I love how he plays like a speed back. To me, there's different types of running backs, right? To me, he's a speed back. He's a fast. But most speed backs at this age, at this stage of their careers, they're like 180. Kevin Riley's like 195. I mean, for a speed back, I think here's a guy that's going to play college football at over 200 pounds. So I'm excited about that. It's always weird when you're recruiting local kids. And I don't know anything about Kevin's personality or anything because we haven't been super involved until late. But it's weird recruiting local kids for all sorts of reasons. We'll go into it during the silly season, I think, because I've had to learn a lot about that myself. But recruiting local kids is different than recruiting them from far away. And it can be good and it can be bad for the program. For the kid, it can also be good and be bad, But every kid's a little different. The last couple of local kids from Tuscaloosa that have been running backs worked out pretty good, though, at Alabama. And I'm talking about B-Rob and Bo Scarborough. So how about kind of interesting that on the heels of B-Rob and Bo Scarborough comes another Tuscaloosa area back, perhaps, and B-Rob and Bo Scarborough, good players. Kevin Riley might be a step above those guys. We'll see.
That's going to do it for today's episode. We may be back tomorrow. We'll see, but we'll probably definitely be back after the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. And until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.